Good evening, gearheads. Welcome to your Sunday night with Speed City. This is John Massengale, and I am in the studio in Austin, Texas, and I have my friend and partner Jonathan Green across from me. Mr. Green, how are you on this Sunday night?
If I was any better, it would hurt.
Well, grab
Oh, no!
grab
Oh, mayhem! That too.
grab a cup of coffee, grab something comfy, and sit down and enjoy some motorsport talk. 'Cause we got fun stuff to talk about tonight. We do have a guest as well, but we're going to talk a lot of Formula One tonight. But our guest is in the Junior Series, and we have some very interesting news that I didn't know until about 10 minutes ago, Jonathan, about super license points, and we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
There's been a pretty amazing change in one of the series in the amount of super license points, at least one that I know of, so we're going to talk about that.
And it is hugely significant because it is my favorite series, the Toyota Racing Series.
There you go. So we're going to talk about that, and we got lots of Formula One stories, including the crazy, silly season team principal edition, and I've built a spreadsheet for that.
Of course you have.
So, because I couldn't keep up with it. So we're going to talk about that, and but in fact, let's start there. But there's plenty to talk about, so settle in. Jonathan, this was pretty crazy because we had.
Well, it was like dominoes, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. As soon as Ferrari announced that Binotto was gone and that that he was being replaced by Vasseur, everything started to fall. But we had 4 team principals fall out of 10 teams and how many days? I mean, it was crazy. So anyway, it started with Binotto, and I mean, look, we've all seen this with Ferrari. I'm sitting here looking at this spreadsheet that I built, and Jean Todt 93 to 2007, a nice long run, but after that, Domenicali had a 6-year run. Arrivederci after only 3 years.
Oh, very good.
And Binotto, 3 years? So I mean, it's the typical Ferrari thing.
That has been the inherent problem of Ferrari. They have the mark, they have the money, they have the wherewithal and the history to do anything in motorsport, and they have done everything in motorsport, from win Le Mans to win, anything that they put their hand to, they can turn their hand to. And remember, they are purely in the business of going racing to show off their very, very elite brand called Ferrari Sports Cars, and so it is the most pure motor racing team.
That's true.
Unless you look at Aston Martin in a similar way, because Aston Martin, I mean, and there have been others from Bentley and all the rest of it, but in terms of since 1950, when Grand Prix began, Ferrari have been a constant member, the most impressive member, therefore, and also the biggest earner from Formula One. But they are the purist. They are, race on Sunday, we win, you buy a Ferrari, and you're only going to buy one because they're very expensive.
So I started thinking about this. I thought, Vasseur, you have to take it, right? You have to take the Ferrari job. But but the downside is that if you don't win the championship, you're at risk of losing your job, and then you're out. I mean, where do you go from there? I guess. I mean, it just seems like it could be a career killer.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Frédéric Vasseur is from France. And if I know one thing about politics in France, it's not different than it is in America and in Britain. The French know how to play politics. They don't necessarily fit well with the Italian politics. And I think he will be met with a sort of non-Italian wall, if you will, i.e. an Italian wall that says you're not Italian. But that was the same with Jean Todt, and it was the same with Ross Brawn. But their influences had huge influence on Ferrari, and frankly, they say Ferrari. So let's hope they look at Frédéric this way. He's been very successful at Alfa Romeo, and also they've been a partner with Ferrari, therefore. So he has a lot of tentacles. They know him. He has demonstrated using their engines how successful he could be, and got the likes of Raikkonen on board, and and so on. And in what was a few years ago a sort of failing team is now knocking on the door of midterm. So he's been a successful team manager. He now needs to bring that with him to Ferrari and be stubbornly French and say, my way. We're doing it this way.
It sounds like you think he's got a shot at being successful there.
Yes, I do, because all the ingredients are there. Binotto, I mean, if you remember, if we only go back a few weeks, we were looking at the runners-up in the championship, i.e. Charles Leclerc, and saying, yeah, it was a season that went horribly wrong for them, certainly for Charles, but they weren't that far off, and they made mistakes, and we criticized them for those mistakes, but they had a car and an engine and 2 drivers, all capable of winning on any given Sunday. So the real job is not to reinvent the wheel at Ferrari and start bringing in all your mates and all that kind of stuff. It's to go there and be a strong leader and make sure the, excuse my French, mess-ups, but le merde that was created is not created again. And he's been doing that. If you come from a smaller team, ask Gunter Steiner. Look at their pit stops. They don't make mistakes like that. That's how they got that pole position, did Haas. Smaller teams work almost harder than the bigger teams, because those little tiny increments of whether it be a pit stop or whether it be having a part ready or a nose cone ready or strategy. These are the ways that Ferrari have let themselves down. And if we saw during the season, Charles Leclerc was making calls to the team and then arguing about those calls and saying, "Why are you doing this?"
Yeah.
So, I don't. I do. I mean, I would certainly give him. I think he's the right guy for the job.
Yeah. Well, like you said, he's going to walk in and have all the pieces in place. So that's going to be very interesting. All right. So what else? What other dominoes fall? We saw McLaren. Andrea Seidel is now moving over to Alfa Romeo, but not as team principal, as CEO. And
I think that's important.
Yes. And I think that's a loss for McLaren. I have to count that as a loss for McLaren.
Well,
and Stella is stepping up.
Yes, and that is important in 2 ways. McLaren are also on an upward spiral, and it's a big loss to lose Seidel, because of course he came from Porsche. He had done his, if you like, his accolade was coming from sports car racing, where he'd been massively successful for Porsche, winning in WEC with them. And so he brought those skills to McLaren, and look what they've done in the last 5 years under his tutelage. So he is a very capable guy, and I think that's a good move on his part. But also the fact that they're making him managing director, which means he's not just going from principal to principal. He's actually becoming a role that perhaps is more needed. And I am one of those people that believes. I do think with 24 races, you can't be running a business and running a race team. It takes 2 people, because there's a lot that goes on of a weekend. Let's face it, you've been to these paddocks, you've been to Miami and so on. The business of Formula One takes place between Thursday and Sunday of the race weekend, wherever you are in the world. So if you're trying to get sponsorship, you're trying to do deals, you need the CEO there, sitting in hospitality, taking meetings.
Right, and leaving a strategic hole in the team.
Correct. And having then a team principal that deals with, right, what are we going to do Friday morning? What's the procedure? I wish we had Dave O'Neill on today, because he could explain it better. But, I think he would agree with that assumption. And to a certain extent, look at Haas. Gene Haas is the CEO. Gunter runs the team, and Gene doesn't bother Gunter, and Gunter gets on with it, and they're on the phone, effing and blinding, whether it's good or bad. But that to me seems the way to go. And at any time a CEO is also the team principal, I think those days are gone. It's a business, a massive business that needs a very good CEO. And that's why Zach Brown doesn't run McLaren. He's the CEO of McLaren.
They're too big. The operations are too big now.
Yeah, absolutely. So that
just made you host. All right, so let's look down here a little bit. So with Alfa Romeo,
you've only got to 1 musical chair or 2 musical chairs.
Yeah. Well, we did talk about Williams, how they haven't assigned a new team principal, but they did.
Capito is out though,
right?
And is he out of Formula One? Do we know? I think so.
I think so too. That's funny. How come I don't know that? But
because there's no press about it.
Yeah. Well, so if you're Williams, if you're Doralton Capital, who do you put in?
I might look within. I might look to somebody like a Rob Schmedley, or somebody who's been, in a key position in a team, but is ready to step up. I wouldn't be looking for the Paddy Lowe's of this world. I think the business of Formula One and Formula One itself is changing fast, and I think you need young blood and you need good ideas, and you need to promote from within, unless there were a figure. And maybe I mean, I don't know enough about it, but unless there was a figure like a Siddell in WEC working currently for one of the teams in sports car racing or IMSA. I noticed that McLaren have just changed their head in IndyCar. You know, there are a lot of talented people around the world who could come from rally, could come from Indy, could come from Formula E, for example.
And also, you could come from outside. You know, a lot of entities, a lot of teams and other sports and other businesses like to bring in people from completely different. And I know that's happened in motorsports. I'm trying to think of some examples. But that could happen too. You could bring somebody in from, you know, a really big corporate.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, Williams could. I mean, let's face it. Darlington Capital. They're. I mean, they're an investment company. So you could bring in a blue chip businessman to run.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
To run the team, which was run. Let's face it, by first Frank Williams and then Claire Williams and then Patrick. And Patrick had in between there. But what you could do is you could get a 40+ very, very good team manager that's been an engineer or has been, the head of an aerodynamics team or whatever it might be, has had a big role within Formula One. It may not be from Williams; it could be from another team. You may poach somebody from Aston Martin for all I know. But my point is, you put him in, and then above him, you maybe put somebody who speaks the corporate language of Darlington and helps move that business forward.
Yeah,
because Williams need it bad.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, if ever there was a need for a CEO and a team principal, and I think Capito was a bit of both.
Mm-hmm. And it is a shame thinking about Logan Sargent stepping into an organization that's, I was going to say disarray. That's not the right word. They're just, they're not very.
There's no good time, is there? That's the problem. And you've got to look at seriously. I've said this to anybody who's asked, which is, how good could Sargent be? I say, don't look at what he finishes with. That you may as well be comparing him to Latifi, and that's not fair. What you could do is look at what he does against Albon.
Yeah,
that's all you can compare it to, because because the Williams aren't going to suddenly jump up to the midfield this season. They're going to be there or thereabouts. They may score some surprising results. They may get some points, but the only way to really judge Sargent is to put him up against a guy in the same car and a guy who's been to Red Bull and been to Williams and has had a season now and is obviously worthy of an F1 seat, and that's to me my benchmark.
Yeah.
So I'll look at testing and say, okay, how many tenths is Sargent off? And I looked at Abu Dhabi and he wasn't far off at all.
No, he was 2 tenths off, if I recall.
Right. So there you go.
We got a couple of listeners on YouTube. Andy P says the 2022 season just keeps on giving. Team principal merry-go-round indeed. He said Seidel wasn't ever going to be able to move up at McLaren. At Sauber, he gets to be a czar type figure. I like that. So while that stings, the rest of the McLaren structure is still there. And he is a big fan. Hey, Mike Bowles, he's saying hey. All right, let's go to break. And when we come back, our guest has joined us. We're going to talk to a young race car driver. You're listening to Sunday Night with Speed City. Back after these messages. Hey, can you come in here, Case? All right, we're still live on YouTube. And we've had some folks over the last year say, who is that guy behind the glass? They're saying, who's that? Because they see through the smoky glass. And that's our producer, Casey.
Casey, the man, the myth, the legend. He does exist.
And we do have a tradition at Speed City. Every year we give a Christmas present to our...
Ho, 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 ho. Happy Christmas, Casey.
And it's a pair.
And it comes with a jacket. And you wear them both sides of your jacket. Yeah. And then you can scare little old ladies in the street.
I saw the JBLs. They had them on a great deal. And I said, that's got Casey's name
all over it. That looks fun. That looks like fun.
Should annoy my neighbors great.
Yeah, I should get some of those.
You're welcome, Mr. Casey.
Man. Thank you very much.
Max Godfrey on YouTube says, pumped for Sargent? Yes, Max, we are. And Max, we're also pumped for Andretti. Last week I said it on the show, and I just had a 2-minute blurb about it on the show. All right, here we're coming back from the break, and we'll continue with that theme.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Sargent and those expectations again.
Well, we got our guest coming in, and we'll get to all that.
We'll ask him
what he thinks. Opinion, yep.
Hello to everyone. This is Gunther Steiner. This is Speed City. Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, welcome back to your Sunday night with Speed City. We're very excited to welcome our guest to the show. He's a very, very fast young race car driver, and he just won the USF Junior Championship at COTA here not long ago. We want to welcome to the show Mac Clark. Mac, welcome to Speed City.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me on. How are we doing tonight?
We're doing good, man. How are you doing? You look like you got a hell of a rig there.
It's like kind of the only place I have a nice webcam. So I do my business calls, my Zoom meetings, my interviews from here. And
dude,
it works out.
What better place to go on Speed City than in your simulator? What kind of computer do you have hooked up to all that?
So I have a custom built computer because over here we're pretty serious about our sim racing. So I got a 1080 Ti graphics card, got my own custom case, and I spend a lot of time listening.
You'll be glad to know our YouTube editor has exactly the same video card, the 1080 Ti.
No way.
Yeah, I know that because he's my son. But yes, he has a 1080 Ti. But it looks like he doesn't have the same cool Fanatec wheel that you've got. But it looks like you got a cool rig. Well, hey, tell everybody where you are. You said over here.
Yeah, so I'm actually located in Toronto, Canadian boy, since I was born. So I'm back for the holidays at my parents' house because usually I'm actually living on campus at university.
Now, talking of his parents, I met Mr. Mac, Mac Clark's dad, one of the first guys I met. And I knew that I didn't know anything about Mac Clark. But I knew that these guys were serious about promoting whatever they were going to sell. Whatever snake oil they were selling, I was buying because his dad came over to the commentary booth, found me out and said, "Hi, I need to talk to you. Are you the commentator?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, here's the information, and that's my son. That's his number." I said, "I'll look out for him." I said, "And he's welcome to come over and do some commentary." Well, it didn't take long before he was right there and helping out, and he has been helping both myself and John Phippen out. So the Clarks are serious.
Yeah. Well, that's good. You got to have that, man. The whole family's got to be involved on your way up the ladder. Isn't that right, Mac?
100%. I mean, racing at a high level, like you said, the whole family has to be in, whether it be, my father on a day-to-day basis or, my little brother, my mom, just as much. It really is a family effort.
Well, get everybody up to speed on your career. I just said you just won the USF Juniors Championship here at COTA not long ago, just a few weeks ago, right?
Yeah, so that was a big win for us, and now we're looking forward to 2023 in the USF 2000 program with D-Force Racing once again. We just announced actually 2 days ago. So, St. Pete's not that far away.
Awesome.
Who are you teaming with? Do you know?
Yeah, so I'm going to have two teammates this year. One is kind of like returning. He was my teammate in USF Juniors last year, Maxwell Jameson, as well as George Garcia. He's a new addition to our team.
How old are you, Mac?
I'm 18.
Okay. How did you get started?
I started racing when I was about 11 years old in karts. I think most, young, especially in the open wheel kind of categories, drivers get their start in go-karting. And I kind of got it from my dad. My dad, he started racing, in his later 30s. And I caught the bug, 10, 11 years old. And, things have just kind of went like this ever since.
Huh, nice.
I mean, we've just been talking before you came on, and it's totally relevant to you. We've just lost a Canadian in Latifi, and we've just gained an American in Logan Sargent. And obviously, I'm sure you are on the pulse of all things Formula One because it's of interest to you, whether you're going to Indy, whether you're going to Formula One, or whether you just want to follow racing. So what's your take on all of that? And finish it off by telling us your hopes for Logan Sargent.
I'm excited to see Sargent come in. I really want to see how he does and how he performs. I heard you guys chatting, so I'm going to piggyback off that a little bit right before the break about how he does compared to Albon. And I think, as you guys said, that's going to kind of be the biggest factor in whether or not he stays in Formula One, whether or not he's successful in Formula One. But I mean, I'm someone who's rooting for him 100%. It's nice to have a North American in Formula One, such as himself, and hoping to see that he'll be competitive.
And what do you think Nicholas Latifi should do?
I'm honestly not sure. I haven't followed, his career super close since the announcement that he wasn't going to be back in Formula One. So I don't even know what he's up to for 2023. Do we?
No, we don't. We don't. No. Obviously, we spoke to him and when he was here at COTA, and the talk was Indy, was a serious option. And while he didn't know what he was doing at that point, he said yes. And of course, that led to a rumor of everybody talking about him going. But of course, there's not many seats left in Indy anyway. And so that might be a long process. But a question for you I often think of, we had, 3 or 4 Canadians in the F4 championship last year. And I'm sure there was plenty in the US on the road to Indy as well. Is it harder for Canadians because there's less motorsport up there?
I think it's just a little bit different. As you start to get more and more competitive up the motorsport ladder, like you said, there's not much racing going on in Canada. I mean, we have Streets of Toronto, but that's Road to Indy and IndyCar coming up to us. So
Right.
I don't know if it's necessarily more difficult, but it does kind of make you a little bit more proud to be Canadian when you're racing amongst, all the Americans and South Americans, even Europeans, because it seems like we're kind of few and far in between in the motorsport world.
Well, speaking of Canadians, you get helped out by Mr. James Hinchcliffe, don't you?
Yeah, so James he's my mentor. It's through a company called Speed Group. They're my kind of like management team, and that's comprised of Tony Calderon, who was an old IndyCar manager. I believe he managed Paul Tracy back in the day for a while.
Good luck.
David Martinez.
Managed.
An
Right.
interesting use of word there.
David Martinez, who is part owner of D-Force Racing, and then James. So it's those 3 guys, and I'm really lucky to have all of them, kind of in my corner fighting for me.
Well, and also you've had 2 people that are close to me involved in your career. One being Alonso Jr., who is also, has played a part, but also Scott Goodyear, fellow Canadian, and also has been your race director at some of the F4 races you've done and FR races you've done. So, what about those 2 cats as well as James?
I think it's, really cool for me as a young driver to have, those guys that have driven at a high level and really see what they have to offer to me, as someone who's trying to do the same thing, who's trying to make something out of myself. So, the little like tidbits or piece of advice that they give to me, it's, something I kind of take to heart and really try to apply to myself, whether that be on track or off track advice.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Mac, there's a comment on YouTube. Max Godfrey says he's jealous of your rig, Mac. He says, I don't have room in my apartment. I play F1 or racing games with my controller.
Ooh, that's tough.
Bold. That's very bold.
That's brutal is what that is.
That's next level.
Let's see.
I'm lucky to have this rig going on. I mean,
what's your go-to then? Well, I mean, I bought the computer, but I don't have the hardware yet. So if you've got any advice for me and for anybody else who's just getting into gaming, but doing it for a serious, want to see the tracks and want to feel what it's like out there and understand the cambers and the apexes, what would you put me towards?
As far as I understand, I mean, it really depends on price point because, like in the sim racing world, you can go 0 to 100 so quick, right?
Yeah.
As far as I understand, a direct drive wheel is the best. I don't actually have one. Mine's belt driven.
Which one?
I mean, it does
direct drive instead of belt driven.
Drive, yeah.
Yep.
I have a belt driven wheel. I have Husing belt pedals. They're top notch.
Yep.
I really do like them. So if you're thinking about getting serious about pedals, I'd point you in that direction. But I'm usually on iRacing. You'll catch me on there, especially when I'm home, like 2, 3, 4 times a week. And yeah, I really like using the stim to stay sharp. So I haven't been streaming. I've been a little bit, not responsible about that. I was before, about a year ago. I was streaming all the time, but since kind of racing's kind of gone into a higher gear and I moved away for university, I haven't been streaming as much.
Yeah. Where are you going to school?
It's called Ontario Tech University. It's relatively new, and we share a campus with Durham College. So it's about 30 minutes east of Toronto. So it's fairly close to home.
Cool.
What do you do in the off season, Matt? I'm just about to head to New Zealand, and I wish you were coming.
I wish too, man. That's I assume that's for TRS, right?
Yes, that's right.
Such a cool series. I'd really like to be there one day. Right now, it's all about staying on the sim, staying in the gym, making sure I'm sharp and ready for St. Pete, which is first week of March.
Because I mean, they just announced that they've gone from 10 for the winner to 18 super license points. Where are you on that scale? Have you got any super license points yet? Have you accumulated any? And that these now are things that people think about, right?
It's something that, like you're saying, it's something that you have to think about as a young driver. I believe I have 10 already between my F4 US and FR America's campaigns, and that's just from finishing position in the championship. So yeah, it's something that my father and I and the people around me are definitely conscious of, and I mean that's a very good option if we find the funding or the opportunity to go to TRS. It's a big incentive for drivers all around the world is those super license points.
Well, Jonathan, tell them on Monday what was announced.
Yeah, well, yeah, basically.
I mean, it's that
they've basically now got the same status. They are now FR Oceania.
FR regionals.
A regional championship with the FR championship. And in 5 weeks, you can get basically 18 super license points for winning the championship, all the way down to the top 9. So we'll score super license points. And what I think is so remarkable about that is that that's all compacted into 5 weeks. So you can come back to Canada or the States knowing, what goal to set for yourself. I mean, if you were to win, I mean, the real mouth-watering headline was if you win the Toyota Racing Series and then you come back to America and win the FR Americas Series or an Indy Lights Series or whatever it might be, you're almost, you're knocking on the door of having 40 points.
Yeah, it's an awesome opportunity for young drivers, right? Because that's what everyone kind of looks at as those 40 points that you need to compete in Formula One or something of that nature, right?
Yep, 40 is what you need.
Yeah. Hey, Matt, can you stick with us through one more segment?
100%.
All right, we're going to go to break. You're listening to your Sunday Night with Speed City. Back after these messages. Hey, Mac, we are live on YouTube still. We stay live on YouTube during the breaks.
So, Mac, I got a question for you. I think it would be great. We've been talking to Logan Sargent, but I'd like to hear from you. You do so much, you have a great knowledge, including yourself, obviously, but you have a great knowledge of who you're going to bump into in the Indy 500 in 5 years' time. You know what I mean? In other words, you are racing the kids of today and tomorrow, but I would like to know who you have been impressed by in any of the series you've been in or whose reputation has kind of preceded him, and you've gone, yeah, okay, that Kiko Porto, he's the real deal. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've got some names. We've had Ryan Sheehan on the show the other week, and I know you've competed against him. I know that Jacob Abel, I think, is going down. Ryan Sheehan's obviously going down there. Chloe Chambers is going down to Toyota. And I'm just using those names because they're on my buzz night now. But Nick Persing, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'd be interested to know who you look at as competition.
I mean, that's a tough question because
I know. That's why I asked it just on the internet.
The season starts, right? Like, it's tough. But
maybe look at who you've mentioned your teammates, right? Yeah, I presume you have an idea of who else is going to be racing for other teams, right?
Yeah. So I mean, it's not everyone is announced yet. But,
no.
I mean, inside the motorsport world, we all have a pretty.
There
good
must be
idea,
somebody who is kind of, oh right, he's going to be favorite because he's with that team and he's got this record or whatever it might be.
For sure, I think the Velocity Racing Development, the VRD team's going to be strong. They were strong in USF Juniors. I think they'll be strong in USF 2000, as well as being Pabst always brings the fight in terms of the championship. So it'll be interesting to see who they sign because that's actually one team that's kind of has a big question mark around it right now. So
which one?
I mean, I'm waiting Pabst Racing.
Oh, okay.
In USF 2000, yeah, because I'm unaware of who they actually have driving for them in 2023.
And who's doing? Is Howard Development involved as well?
Yeah, so Jay Howard's in there as well. I think they have a strong driver in Lockie Hughes. He did very well. I mean, he won the F4 championship, right?
And Jason Older's always impressed me.
100%. I'm not sure what his plans are for 2023. That'll be interesting to see.
All right, well, I'll throw it out there and you can...
Hi, this is Max Verstappen, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
He could be good, that kid.
I think when was that? Was that last year or year before?
He was 18 just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, he was.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah. Our guest tonight is Mac Clark, USF Juniors champion. Mac, we got a couple people already talking on YouTube and commenting and stuff, and they're asking about two questions. They're asking about Ford, and they're asking about Andretti. I wanted to touch on Andretti real quick because last Sunday there was an article that hit the Indy Star. I mentioned it just briefly at the end of the show. We had about 90 seconds worth of discussion about it, and I had our YouTube editor extraordinaire cut that out and put it up as its own separate video Well, last Sunday's show had, I don't know, maybe 1,000 views. That video has 5,000 views now. Another 1,000 since I
The
told you a
interest is
few hours
there.
ago about Andretti saying what he said was, he said two really big nuggets. One was that the Guggenheim,
Yeah.
not the museum, but this Guggenheim, basically a financial
Establishment, but backing his.
what's the word I'm looking for? I'm drawing a blank. Anyway, they manage
Investment.
funds.
Yeah,
they
investment.
manage like
hedge funds.
$300 billion fund. They are involved,
Yeah.
right? And
In both the potential of the Formula One team and also building the new
headquarters.
Okay.
Yeah. And the other thing, of course, was that he said we are still continuing to have discussions with Formula One, and we might know before Christmas.
Yeah.
That was last week. He said that. So
Wow.
yes. Thank you, Mac. That's the
response we were hoping for.
Yeah.
From an 18-year-old driver hoping to drive for them one day.
I mean, I feel like it opens up or builds a bridge almost for North Americans into Formula One, right? I mean, it's an instant
that is
connection.
very, very well put.
Yeah. And the truth is, Michael has his tentacles in every form of motorsport, and I find the world of Formula One kind of ignorant. And I'll use a phrase. It pissed me off, to be honest. That people like learned people like Toto Wolff were saying, "Oh, Michael's done very well in America with his teams," and it's like, no, Michael Andretti's in Australia. He's in the desert in E. He's in Formula E. He's in Formula Extreme. He's in Indy Lights. He's in Indy. He is pretty much in every form of motorsport.
Well, we're talking about the word GOAT gets thrown around quite often these days. Mario Andretti has got to be on the shortest of short list of greatest race drivers of all time. So,
yes.
I mean, just having him associated with it, but knowing Mario like we do, he is a badass businessman, and we know this firsthand. So I will come unhinged if this happens. We're not planning on doing a show next Sunday night because that's Christmas. But if Mario Andretti announces before then, we may be on the air. I may be sitting in my studio at home.
Christmas time show might happen.
Exactly.
Listen, Mac, it's great to have you on at this time of the year because you've got a bit of time and you're also looking ahead. But I just want to quiz you a little bit. We talk about, I love talking about the juniors. And like I said, I'm about to go down and meet a whole bunch of new ones. But I try to keep my eye on what's going on in the junior side. But you're racing against them. So you tell us besides Matt Clark, and we will keep saying your name until we're blue in the face because we believe that you are definitely one of the faces of the future.
Thank you.
And you're proving it. But who do you see potentially as your competition this year, and who has impressed you that we might not know? Give us a name that you as a driver have said, okay, if I'm going to make it to the Indy 500 or I'm going to try, I reckon that guy's going to be right beside me.
I'm going to keep it internal. I'm going to play like the whole, teammate card here.
Smart.
And go with our two drivers in Indy Pro this past season were both very strong. Kiko Porto and Nolan Siegel, who's now moving up to lights. But both of them were very strong, and I could definitely see myself, hopefully in 5 years, we're all in IndyCar together, duking it out.
Well, I've worked with Kiko, so is he staying in Pro? We don't know.
I don't see.
But we know that Siegel's going up to lights.
So Nolan is doing lights with HMD, which is super exciting. So I'm very, very excited to see how he does because I think he's going to grab the bull by the horns and really run with it.
And what do you think of Chadwick teaming up with McElroy in Indy Lights?
That's cool. See, I haven't read much about it, but I know that she is doing lights, and I'm excited to see how McElroy does in his second year as well because he put together some very strong performances this past year.
Yeah, and I got to know Matthew Brabham because he came and did some Trans Am with us in the Trans Am series, as well as doing so well in Indy Lights. So, I'm always interested to hear from drivers like yourself, who we should be looking at. And it's good to hear Kiko Porto, Nolan Siegel, as two potential drivers there and Matt Clark, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. 3 names for the future, folks.
Hey, this week we had some other big news besides the team principal silly season. Schumacher officially joins Mercedes as 2023 reserve driver. That's cool.
Yeah, let me put you in that position, Mac. You obviously followed Mick's career. You feel for him, I'm sure, but not a bad way to end up if you're going to be.
Not at all. No, he's still in Formula One. I think the door is still open for him. I think there will be opportunities, down the line. And the fact that he's still in the paddock is, I think, very important for him in his career.
Hey, you just never know. Look at Hulkenberg.
Right.
Yeah.
And think about it, Mercedes. I mean, Lewis is not going to race until he's 50, I'm sure. But I got a feeling he might race. But imagine putting Schumacher under your wing, and then having Russell Schumacher as your potential German, as the front foot for Mercedes being the German company that they are, but also Russell being the new big I am, and having Schumacher as the great PR and either number 2 fighting to be number 1.
When you say that, what I think of is if Russell's as good as it looks like he is.
He had qualified.
Then Schumacher could be the Bottas to, because I think that worked for Mercedes. I was thinking of another. Oh dang it! I lost my train of thought. I was thinking of something else you said about Schumacher, but anyway, that was big news. Or also some big news because Aston Martin became the first F1 team to announce their car launch date.
I saw that. Yeah.
Excuse me. We're gonna see some more of those, and they are launching on February 13th. So we'll probably see a bunch coming through here shortly.
By the way, there was a story by Chris Medland, give him a plug, on racer.com, give them a plug, saying that Mercedes believes George Russell showed in his qualifying pace to be within a tenth of Lewis Hamilton during the 2022 season. And that headline hit me because that's no mean feat in your first full season for Mercedes.
Mac, you a George Russell fan?
I think I am. I'm actually 50% British, so my dad was born across the pond, and I think there's some I don't know.
Mental note: he's really British.
I don't know if there's some I don't know if nostalgia or loyalty is the right word, but I was kind of I grew up watching the George and the Charles Leclercs, in karting at a top level in Europe.
Yeah.
So I kind of idolize them, and to see them actually make it to Formula One and start killing it on the big stage is really cool. So I'd say, it's kind of a controversial opinion because I actually heard a lot of people saying, they weren't exactly rocking with George this year, but I mean, I'd say I'm a fan.
Good. Hey, I want to ask you about another big story that came out, Mac. This is the one where Formula One is talking about their F1 Academy, and the 5 teams that are making that up got announced this week. Are you familiar with the new inaugural F1 Academy?
I'm actually not. I'm gonna be honest. I haven't been keeping up with my news the past 2 weeks between exams and coming home and stuff. But that sounds really interesting. Tell me about it.
What it is, they're investing in a series that'll give female drivers an opportunity in single seaters, aiming for those coming straight out of karting and looking to make their first step into Formula F4 cars. So
awesome.
Yeah. So that was an interesting. The teams are Art Grand Prix, Campos, Carlin, MP Motorsport, and Prima.
Yeah, so
Those
it's
are
all
big
the
teams.
these
All
are
the
the
F3 and F2
So the
teams,
idea being that they're gonna the girls basically bring 150,000, and that is matched by the team or by the conglomerate, and that's how the budget is sought. So yeah, I mean, a chance to race with Carlin or Prima, unbelievable.
Yeah,
I know that's going to be fun to watch. I know that when we all heard about it, we were worried that, is this the end of the W Series? But they're saying no, so we'll keep an eye on that.
I think it's a better model.
Yeah,
honestly,
I hate to say that. All right, we're going to talk about Ford.
Okay,
and maybe Ford versus Ferrari in the future. But have you heard this rumor, Mac, about Ford coming to Formula One?
No, I haven't heard anything about that.
Okay.
Mac, we got to get you out of Toronto, man. You need to be on the show every week.
I'm living under a rock here in Canada.
Clearly.
If you tune in to Speed City every Sunday night, you would
tell Canada.
I gotta get my news fixed, man. I gotta let all the Canadians know up here. I'll send the sled dogs out and
absolutely. Lead dog gets the best view. You should know that.
Well, right now this is purely a rumor, and it's a rumor when the headline says Ford is not denying the F1 rumors. And that's, Jonathan, you put this in here.
I know. It says we do not comment on speculative stories. That's the actual, that whole story is based on that line. But I still like it.
Are you kidding? We love it. I just have no idea if there's anything to it. But yeah, when Ford steps up, and there's even a hint of that. I mean, look, let's face it, guys, with what Drive to Survive has done for the sport, nothing is off the table, right?
No. And Ford has, the biggest history of all. I did the Monaco historic last year, and we looked at the history of Cosworth and Ford in Formula One, and you forget that the winningest manufacturer in Formula One is Ford.
That's crazy, right?
Engine manufacturer.
I think you told me that.
Well, because during the 80s and 90s, that's all they used.
Yeah. That's nuts. So. Let's see. The the other one I wanted to talk about was I know what it was. What slipped my mind a while ago. You were talking about Hamilton retiring. Have you heard all these rumors or this little not rumors? What Max has said about possibly retiring. He's not talking about immediately, but he keeps dropping the R word and saying like he may not, because he's so young and he's done so much. But and we all envision Max being able to fight for championships for another, I don't know, almost 10 years seems like, because he's what 26 years old, and he's been saying stuff about retirement. No, nothing. But I don't know if you guys had heard that.
Well, is his knees giving up or what?
And,
He's getting old.
I think he's just realizing what it takes at the top here. How much I mean, look at last season, the insanity of that. So I just thought it was interesting.
Well,
that he
let's
was saying
ask
that.
Mac. What are your? I mean, let's look at your ambitions. Where do you see yourself? You're 18 now. You've had some success. You've definitely made a name for yourself here in the States. But what is going to satisfy Mac Clark and Team Clark at the end of the day?
I think, the ultimate goal that every young driver has is to be the best. And for me, that kind of bucket list consists of an IndyCar championship, an Indy 500 win, because that's kind of the path that I'm headed towards, as F1 is kind of unrealistic for how late I started, how much funding we have. And I live on the wrong side of the pond, right? So I'm more than happy with IndyCar, and that's kind of where I want to go. But I definitely want to see myself racing. I think, this might change as I get older and maybe, start a family or something. But 35, like I'm a very competitive person, so I'd like to see myself compete until I feel like maybe I'm not at the top of my game. Like you always see those athletes, for example, like I'm a big follower of American football. So like Tom Brady, right? He decided to come back this year, and as long as he's performing at a high level, he says that he wants to keep playing.
Yeah. Well, that's the anomaly of them all is Tom Brady at 44 or 43, whatever he is. But Verstappen's, I just looked, he's 25. So
It's
I mean,
much different.
He's going to become the kicker for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
he's or is he looking at it going, because Hamilton's what, 38?
37, 38.
Yeah. So is he's going, look at what all I've done. Do I have another 12 years in me?
Yeah.
I think it happened. They were literally asking him all these questions like the day after the season ended.
Well,
so.
I mean, not being funny, but every season now is going to be a bad season if he doesn't win the championship. I mean, that is what you've got to look at that at 26. Yeah. I mean, it would get old. I mean, and you just don't have. I mean, he cannot control whether Honda stay with Red Bull or Red Bull go through their own powertrains and do a deal. One with Porsche fell through. And let's look at Hamilton's career. Hamilton's career has been because of the moves he's made at the times he's made them. Yes, he's a very, very good driver, but is he that much better, or is he in the right place at the right time?
I'd say a little of both of those.
Yeah.
I got a couple more stories I want to go to, but I just looked at the time. Hey, Mac, you got time for one more segment?
100%, I'm here.
Awesome, dude. Well, we are going to take our last break, and we got a couple of stories here. I got one from Fernando Alonso I want to talk about. You're listening to Sunday Night with Speed City. Back after this.
What's the Fernando story?
The Fernando story is
he does this, Mac. By the way, he grooms. Well, no, he gets young drivers on and says, "Oh yeah, do a segment," and then he keeps them.
And then I make you stay for the whole show.
Man. I got nothing to do, man.
I could tell you sitting there hanging
Sunday
out,
night.
Relaxed. Yeah,
you're learning a bunch now.
What's to be honest?
The story is, well, you'll get to hear in a minute.
Okay.
It's not anything. It's not breaking news. It's just an interesting little comment. So we will see what that's about. But and I have a good contrast to that from Zach Brown. So we'll hear that about both of those.
Okay.
There's your Russell within a tenth. That's right. You did the DRS zones last week, didn't you? Yeah.
Yes, but I think I put. That's why I keep putting those back in.
Okay.
Because we didn't really.
Okay.
I'd like to. I think it's such a discussion point that I think it's one that will roll. And the fact that they are adjudicating it currently and looking at shorter DRS zones, does make a difference.
All right. Well, we'll check that out.
How much do you?
Oh, here we go. Coming back. That was a short break.
Hi, this is Karun Chandok, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
Thanks for sticking with us this Sunday night. This is our last Sunday night of of this year. Christmas will be off next week, so don't tune in. We'll put up a best of or something. Maybe the one we did a few weeks ago that talked about all the top Formula One moments that we loved. But our guest is Mac Brown, USF.
Mac
me.
Brown was the UT coach.
Wow. Not the UT coach. And I don't even like UT.
I know.
What?
Stop it.
You live in Austin? You don't like UT?
I know.
I'm an Aggie.
How dare you? I hope you get out of the studio okay tonight.
Yeah.
Don't come. You're not coming with me.
Hey, I have an excuse. I'm feeling miserable because of my stupid COVID vaccine. I decided to go ahead and get one because I'm going to see old people next week.
Yeah, this is him being miserable, Mac.
Yes. Our guest is not Mac Brown, but Mac Clark. And Mac, I was going to talk about what Fernando Alonso said because Alonso threw out a comment that I actually liked which is actually
rare.
Kind of rare, yeah. He said that the new rules have not yet achieved the result Formula One intended. And I would agree that I kind of expected a little more of in other words, we're not ready to get rid of DRS yet, but he said that, and I thought that's at least worth mentioning because I think I agree with him. I think there could be more to come. I mean, they're all just getting it all figured out right now.
What do you think, Mac?
It seemed like DRS was a bit powerful this year. I think a few of the drivers were, moaning about it a bit and saying, "Oh, the DRS is too much." But I mean, we did see an increase in overtaking, correct?
Mhm.
Absolutely, yes.
This year, it was
Yes.
it was a big margin, and that could be, because of the additional DRS zones, because they were bigger, this and that. So, I mean, making them smaller again, I think is probably a change that they will make because the drivers were complaining about them being too big. So I'd agree with Nando on that one.
Here's what he said. He said it was a bit disappointing for everyone to realize that things haven't changed dramatically. There are at most 2 teams that can win races, as has been in recent years. The gap between the top 2 or 3 and the midfield is still too big. In 50% of the races, we are 1 lap behind the winner. Therefore, we have not achieved the result that Formula One intended to win with the restart of the rules. So,
Yeah, I'd agree with that, and I'd be interested on Mac's take on this because, to a certain extent, certainly in the kind of cars that he's beginning to drive, he's going to feel that in terms of chasing another car and the dirty air and so on and so forth. But I do feel that we're getting to a point where DRS, we've designed the cars so they can race closer, and we've given them ground effects to do so. But now, do we naturally need DRS? Because there are times where DRS, it's almost inevitable. He's going to overtake because he's got DRS, and those overtakes are sort of, as a commentator, they're just like, well, it's waiting for Christmas. I mean, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
No, I would agree. The only thing I would say is that maybe Fernando's comment, it's a little early. I feel like that the regulation changes might take some time, especially the ones on like the financial side of Formula One, like the cost cap. Like, I think it's going to take time for example, like for the grid to kind of condense a little bit in terms of lap time with the cost cap coming in. I know some teams still aren't going to be able to spend, that max amount of money, but I feel like, maybe in 5 years we'll see if the rules do say the same, we'll see the grid a little bit closer and maybe better racing. I think the FIA will kind of get a handle on these new cars and what they like, and then maybe adjust the DRS from there. So, I'm definitely not too negative on the rule change at all. I think it was definitely an improvement, and spectators, fans of Formula One, I think enjoyed it.
A couple of comments that have hit on YouTube. Paul Bryan says forward wink. I think Paul switched from Facebook to YouTube because he missed our Ford discussion. Paul, if you know something, if you know for sure, it's all just a bunch of rumors as far as we know. If you know something, Paul is a industry insider. So if he knows something, he doesn't, because he would have told me by now. Max says it's jacked up prices way high at COTA right now. That's what Drive to Survive has done. Yeah, it's just the reality, man. COTA looked so good and everything ran so smoothly because everybody bought for last year, just a couple months ago, because everybody bought their tickets early. They sold out. They had a ton of money. Everything was perfect. And, if you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, because the ticket prices were not that high and they couldn't get enough people in and out of there. People complain. Now that everything is running smoothly, they're raising the prices. It is just supply and demand. 440,000 people bought them last year at $375. They're up to $475 this year. So, I mean, this is America.
Well, and isn't Taylor Swift now in the managerial role at COTA?
Yeah. Well, I think the guy that I interviewed at Coda, the executive producer at Drive to Survive, maybe
Yes,
also.
this is true.
That is a good comment, though, Max, because it is true. I mean, it's going to get priced out for a lot of people because it's a lot of money. But I mean, I know people that decided to just go on Saturday,
Yeah.
or even just Friday. Friday,
Yeah.
even this year, when tickets were spiking in the $500 range a few weeks before, Friday you could almost get for free.
But that's the beauty of the Austin race and all the American races. I mean, I had some friends say, "Yeah, we want to go and see Green Day."
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a great environment. So we didn't expect. We thought it was going to be at the, at the stadium, i.e., at the amphitheater.
Yeah.
And when they realized it was on the big stage, they were like, "Oh man, we're at a festival with Green Day."
Yeah, that was cool. Let's see. That's all the comments that are rushing through. Let me see. I wanted a comment to contrast with Alonso's comment, and that was Zach Brown, which actually is no surprise. The promoter extraordinaire that Zach Brown is. He says F1 will have awesome competition in a couple of years as field closes up. So is he?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I agree with Zach on that one.
Yeah.
He says McLaren CEO Zach Brown believes that Formula One's budget cap will take probably another 2 years before the systems begins bringing teams closer and increase competition.
Andrew Popolek.
That's Andy P.
Oh, Andy P. I always get his last name. Wait, well, we'll see how much parking is.
I saw that. Oh, yeah. Yeah. What else is
4 times increase over last year, he says.
Ooh. Also, Zach Brown. I'm all over the board with the first name and last names. He says,
Max
I think
is a catchy first name.
I know
it's
it
just
is.
hard to get.
It's Mackenzie. Why don't you just stick with Mackenzie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Mac's good. I
Mac's
like
so
Mac.
much better.
Plus,
He
I
says,
can
I
get my
think
Mac
even though
the
we're
knife
all
joke
spending
in.
about the same money, some teams have bigger infrastructures. He said, for example, we're still waiting on our wind tunnel, which is down the road. So as the regulations stabilize, people will catch up. That will be amazing. I mean,
I think that we'll all be blown away by the wind tunnel. I'm here all week.
Oh, that joke.
Don't laugh at him.
Thank you, Mac. Appreciate it. Made my day. That's what I was going for.
I got it.
Tell your dad that one.
Oh, man.
Let's see. We got about 3 minutes left. What can I squeeze in here? Aston Martin on target. 5-year plan, Jonathan. That was your story that you saw on motorsport.com.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that this is my only point on the story was Aston Martin have been knocking on the door of becoming the next McLaren or the next big team. And there's no question that with the moves that they've made, both with their factory, we talk about Andretti making moves.
Car was fast this year.
Well, and, they've got the driver they want. Aston Martin are building their own new factory. These guys aren't, they've got a hell of a mark. We talked about Ferrari being, the essence of motorsport, but Aston Martin are too, and have a huge pedigree, certainly in sports car racing over the years. And so they're looking to become the next McLaren. And I say McLaren because that seems to be the obvious, they've got their own sports cars and all the rest of it. And Aston Martin have been doing it in sports cars for a long time. Now they want to translate that to Formula One, and I think they're on the right path. And they've got Lance Stroll, who doesn't mess about.
Yeah, I say the car was fast. I mean, it was.
What's the opinion
times.
in Canada of Lance Stroll?
Yeah, good question.
We like to see Stroll do well. I mean, he did very well in his junior career, his junior Formula career, won at a lot of levels. It was a bit rough there at the start of his career in Formula One, but I mean, he's had those moments where he's been able to shine. And I think as a Canadian, it's really cool to see him, almost like representing us on the global stage. We were rooting for Lance Stroll and we want to see him do well. I'd say that's the Canadian consensus.
Clearly, Matt Clark does not have Stroll money because he only has a 1080 Ti and not a 4080.
That's what I'm saying. Man, I'd have like the 3060 in my computer. Like,
yeah,
I'd be going crazy over here.
and multiple Ferraris in your backyard.
So you'll love this one, Mac. Lance Stroll came down to Toyota Racing Series, and of course I was unaware of his full background. And we were talking, and I said, how did you get into racing? He goes, well, my dad owns a track. And I was like, oh, yeah.
That's right. We didn't know who he was. Hey, by the way,
that track is actually it's in Canada, obviously, right?
Obviously,
yeah.
It's Mont-Tremblant. It's about it's
Mont-Tremblant.
6.5-hour drive. It's like one of the nicest
I'll bet.
karting / car facilities in the country.
Hey, Jonathan, you didn't give away my secret, so we're out of time. But Mac, the reason that I don't say join us for the entire show because sometimes with young drivers you have no idea what you're going to get. So
We
take
are
it as
very
a
pleased.
take it as a compliment.
Come on
You get
anytime.
you can
Thank
come on
you. I appreciate that.
anytime.
Hey, and best
Thank
of
you
luck
for
on the
having
road to Indy. Where can we catch you? I believe it's on Peacock, right?
Are we being
It's
streamed
well, the
on
Road to
Peacock?
Indy.
I
Yeah,
know.
last year it was on
Road to
Peacock.
Indy.tv.
Yeah, Road to Indy TV. So watch the name,
Okay,
Matt
yeah.
Clark. Do you know what your number is?
I'm gonna be #1 this year.
Number 1 this year,
Numero
D-Force Racing.
uno.
He is
Yes,
the
sir.
man, the myth, the legend, the next Jack Villeneuve.
That's right.
I like that.
Yeah, Mac, thanks a lot, buddy. We appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Thanks for tuning in on the radio, however you did, YouTube, Facebook, all the above. I said it, we're not going to be on next week. I want everybody to have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever you celebrate. Spend time with your family, love it. And we'll talk to you soon.
Happy trails. Thanks, Mac.
Thanks, Mac.
Thank you.